standing to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Once again, good morning. I'm Chris Boserman, Delaware County Engineer. I have the honor of chairing our TID board. To my right is Tracy Davies, our Vice Chair, and to my left, Cy Keeley, who's our Secretary Treasurer, and also introduce members, Pat Laney and Tom Price. So thank you all for your service on this board. Also would recognize our County Commissioners, Jeff Benton and Gary Merrill, and thank you for your support in all matters transportation in Delaware County. With that, is there any public comment today? Joe, you are the public today, so if you're saying no, I assume we have no public comment.
No public comment.
All right. Any reports or topics of discussion for board members?
Not at this time.
All right, we'll move on. Cy, could you take us through the Treasurer's report?
Yeah, the current general fund cash balance is $300,357.46. Capital projects fund is $2,470,101.58 for a total balance of $2,770,459.04.
Thank you. Is there any questions or discussion around Cy's report?
Just one, sir. The actual here we've got against the budget, is that an actual versus a month or a quarter, and the budget is a whole year? And then how do I look at those two? And
It's for the whole year.
okay, it's for the whole year. And then the actual is
And the actual is through May 31st.
through May 31st. How is the actual working out with the budget then? That's my question.
Right now, we're on track to come in under budget.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to accept the Treasurer's report.
So move.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'd recognize Chief Deputy Engineer Rob Riley to take us through the staff report. Rob.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. As you can probably surmise, we've had a good bit of activity and have some items for your consideration this morning. And I have to again apologize. A lot of these items have come to very recently, and so there hasn't been a lot of lead time to prepare some of this material, and so that's why again the packet went out so late. But I'll walk you through first the staff update and where we are with the current projects. As you know, we have several projects that are currently under development. I'll start with the Silicon Heartland regional projects. These involve 3 projects on County Line Road, Licking Delaware County Line Road. That would be number 4, 7, and 8 on the map. And number 4 and number 8 are the 2 intersections that Delaware County and the TID are developing as local projects. Number 7, as you may recall, at the intersection of 37 and County Line is being developed by ODOT, District 6. There was a rather complicated arrangement to, in essence, I'll call it kind of trading checks, because the grant funding for number 7 was assigned to the TID. The TID, we turned around and paid ODOT back for their engineering, and we'll pay them back for the construction once we get there. But in essence, there's no cost to the TID for number 7. Number 4 and number 8, however, those are being developed by the county engineer in cooperation with the TID. And so the design for those 2 intersections is underway, making good progress on the design of those. We've gotten to what I would call more or less the final geometry of those roundabouts, and EMHT is under design and carrying those through detailed design right now. So that's where things stand. We're still on schedule to go out to construction on those 2 in 2025, which we do have a deadline to complete those by the end of 2026 for the funding that's provided for those. So any questions on I'll pause for a second. Okay, so I'll move on to 7136 interchange. Lots happening there. We have Phase A under design, very nearly complete. Joe Sullivan is here from MS Consultants. Plans are, it's fair to say, about 99% complete, subject to ODOT's approval. That fair, Joe? And so right-of-way acquisition on Phase A is currently underway. ODOT is handling the right-of-way acquisition, making offers, appraisals, and so forth. That is actively being done with the schedule to wrap that up later this year. As you may recall, we've had some discussions over the last couple of meetings about moving ahead with the next phases of the interchange, which are called B and C. That's the portion going to the west up to Africa Road. And I've had some conversations and been working with Joe on developing a scope and fee for phases B and C. I think we're very, very close to having the final numbers on that, but in the interest of trying to save as much time as possible, I have put together a resolution for your board to consider today to authorize the chairman to enter into agreement with MS Consultants subject to a maximum cost. So I'll talk more about that when we get there to that resolution. But any general questions on the project? Okay.
Do you have, excuse me, do you have a sense of the construction time on this thing yet, on the interchange part?
Yes, Phase A currently is scheduled to award in, I believe, April of 2025, April or May. And I think construction time is somewhere in the order of 15 to 18 months. So we're looking at probably the end of 2026 for completion of Phase A, and that'll include the actual bridge over 71, the interchange ramps, and the connection east over to Wilson Road and the little bit of Wilson Road that we need to build.
Okay, thank you.
We'll move on to Orange Road Railroad grade separation. We haven't had much discussion on this for some time, but as you may recall, about 2 years ago, we actually applied for funding through Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission. Morpsey has a pot of money that they receive by formula through the Federal Highway Administration that they disperse to local agencies in the Central Ohio metropolitan planning area. We were successful in procuring an $8.3 million commitment from Morpsey 2 years ago towards the construction of the Orange Road grade separation. Since that time, we've been working, the county engineer has a design contract underway. We have construction plans maybe 60% complete. We've been working with the railroads to get their approval. I think we're inching towards that, but the project will involve an underpass at Orange Road going under the railroads. When we originally budgeted this project, it was somewhere on the order of $20 to $25 million. That was 4 years ago. With everything else, construction costs have ballooned on the order of 50%. We're now looking at a $40 million project. But some good news, I had a really good conversation yesterday with Matt Dietrich at the High Rail Development Commission, Anthony Tarowski at ODOT. There is a pot of money available through the Federal Rail Administration. These are direct grants through FRA. The program is called the Rail Crossing and Elimination Program. It's a national program, and anyone can apply to it. It's a pretty big chunk of money that they set aside for projects just like this that eliminate grade crossings. In discussions with Matt and his folks, he thinks this would be an excellent candidate for that program. And the reason for that is Delaware County also has 2 other railroad bridge projects under development. That's at Cheshire Road and then the Home Road extension, which would not directly eliminate a crossing, but it would take a lot of traffic off Lewis Center Road, so it would de-emphasize that and provide some benefit there. So the way ORDC is looking at this is really more of a railroad corridor upgrade, and that's why I think the thought behind this being a very strong application, because in essence what FRA would be doing is getting 3 or 2.5 grade crossings eliminated for the price of 80% of one of those. And so the funding would be applied for Orange Road. The other 2 would be funded locally. But long story short, we'll be applying for probably somewhere in the order of $26 million through that program. And then combined with the $8 million from Morpsey, we would have that project about 80% funded, which is the federal maximum, no matter where the different monies come from. That's as much money as you can get for a project. So that's a long explanation for what I think is some good news and good direction on the project, that we have a path forward. We did have a public meeting April 10th that ODOT basically making sure we're complying with NEPA. That went very well. I think the feedback we got was positive. I've told Chris this might be the least controversial $40 million project we ever do. Generally all supportive. I think everyone recognizes the need for it. So no action items for the board today. I just wanted to give you an update on where things stand there. We'll continue working through design over the next year or so, and I'll keep you updated as we progress.
And Rob, ODOT will be assisting us in making that application, is that right?
That's correct. More good news from the meeting yesterday. ODOT was willing to take the lead on the application itself. So ODOT would be the applicant for the funding, and it is our expectation ODOT would actually manage the construction contracts. This would be ODOT-let, as they call it. And part of the reason for that is simply workload, and ODOT has the ability to manage these bigger projects. But secondly, the application itself, I think Federal Rail Administration looks for some assurance that, you know, the project can actually move forward. They probably have more confidence in an entity they know, which is ODOT, versus a local that they may not know. Even though we do sophisticated projects, I think that will be better for the application purposes.
So if any of you see Deputy Director Tarowski, thank him for that. This is something they don't have to do, but are willing to, and I think it's a big step.
This is outside the TID program, and
The TID was actually the applicant for the original Morpsey grant, and so the TID is the recipient, but those grant funds can then be assigned to ODOT when it comes time to construct the project.
so it will come through this process?
It would, yes.
Okay.
Yes. And last but not least, the Bale Canyon improvements, nothing significant to report other than the fact that project is done and turned out pretty nice. We worked with Orange Township, and that did a couple of things. First, that section of road was in really bad shape. It was about ready to fail on the east side of the road. But secondly, we were able to lower the road going under the freeway, and so that was previously a height restricted crossing. Now there's 16 some odd feet of vertical clearance, so that's no longer a posted underpass. So good news there, and you may recall we are working towards phase 2, which will be the south part of Bale Canyon Road. I think the board did, I don't remember if last meeting or 2 meetings ago, we approved a grant agreement to participate in that at $750,000. But again, that's a really nice project, because that road is a busy road, as you know, and will make a nice improvement when it's done. Move on to the TID grant program. You may recall at the last meeting in February, your board authorized the county engineer's office to apply for the Cheshire Road widening. So we did do that for an application of $154,000. Unfortunately, we were not successful in that application. Didn't really receive any explanation. I suspect it's simply a matter of ODOT having received far more applications than the available $4.5 million in funding statewide, and so kind of attribute that to we may just need to wait our turn again for the next cycle. So that's all I have on that. Mr. Chair, do you want to just go directly into the resolutions?
Let's move to item 6, resolution 2024-02, and I'll let you go through the explanation and set that up. I think there's some maybe adjustments in there.
Yes. So the Bean-Aller Road improvements, again, this is a new project to the TID board. It is a project that the county engineer's office has been working with Liberty Township and Olentangy schools on over the last 8 months or so. As you may know, Olentangy Schools owns a 24-acre parcel on Bean-Aller Road, just west of Sawmill Parkway, and that site is planned for a future school. At some point, when the district has funds to build that school, that entrance would really need a left turn lane into the site because of the amount of apparent drop-offs you have. And so what we have done is work together with Liberty to design a widening for that section of road, and then resurfacing of the rest of Liberty Township section of Bean-Aller over to Liberty Road. And Liberty actually applied to Ohio Public Works Commission last fall. Was I think successful pending the grant agreement, will be successful in procuring that funding for up to $299,000 through OPWC. This being a multi-party project, again, this is a project I think the TID can lend some support through its, what I would say, more efficient contracting abilities to kind of join all those funding sources into one, and actually proceed with the construction contract for this as a TID project. It's very likely the TID would have very little out of pocket, but I did want to request authorization for up to $75,000 of TID funding. If the bids do come in lower and the contract expenses come in lower, that may be a much smaller number than $75,000, but again, I think this is a nice improvement. This is a good example of a number of different agencies working together and frankly taking advantage of the ability the TID has to work pretty quickly. So one amendment I do want to add, and I'll let Eric chime in if he has any further comments. The agreement as written does reference the master agreement that the TID has with the county engineer's office. I neglected to recognize that the other parties are not party to that agreement, and so I would recommend just striking, rather than incorporating the entire text of that agreement into this agreement. And Eric, I'll defer to you whether we would be able to just strike Article 8 from this agreement.
Eric Hostetler, General Counsel for the Board of County Commissioners. Since the commissioners are a party to this, I'm happy to work on revisions to the agreement. Basically, what I would suggest is we actually pull in some of those provisions from the master agreement. When the commissioners and the TID enter into a contract, we just reference the master agreement that has all of the, call it boilerplate. I think we should actually bring those provisions into this, and then you'll have a template going forward for multi-party agreements. That's my suggestion. So if you want to approve this subject to the chair approving any necessary revisions to the form, that would get us on our way.
So in section 1 of the resolution 2024-02, you'll see it references chairman is authorized to enter into agreement and execute the project agreement in substantially the same form. I would propose a change to state that the chairman is authorized to enter into the agreement and negotiate acceptable changes on behalf of the TID. Would that be sufficient?
Yeah, that would be sufficient. That'd make it clear that, because the form is gonna look a lot different, and I don't want there to be any question about
Yeah.
whether a form is substantially the same as the one presented. That would be sufficient.
The substance of the agreement will,
The
That-
business terms would remain the same. We're just gonna be talking about adding in some legal provisions. But the form of the agreement actually will look a lot different than the one presented, but nothing substantive changing.
I'll make a motion, we approve the agreement, subject to revisions to be inserted by Commissioners' Council, subject to the authorization by the chair.
thank you, Pat. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? That motion carries. Resolution 24-03. Rob, you want to set that up, please?
Certainly. With 2024-03, this involves the 71 interchange. You may recall, we have a project agreement for Phase A. Currently, that was approved several years ago. And essentially, the business points of that involve the county commissioners making a deposit with the TID, which they've done over several different deposit amounts, up to a cap of $3 million for design of Phase A. This would basically authorize Mr. Bosman to enter into a second agreement to undertake Phase B and C. And speaking with, again, with Eric, I believe there were some references in the agreement as submitted that refer to the general fund. I believe it's the intention of the county to use TIF revenues from some of the commercial developments in the area. This involves, there's at least a couple of different multifamily developments where the county has a TIF, or, yeah, the county
Yes,
TIFs, right?
correct.
Yes. And to use those revenues to pay for this additional $3 million cap through those funds. And so what I would ask for, kind of like the last resolution, would be rather than the statement substantially the same form, basically authorize the chair to negotiate terms acceptable. I don't know how we want to word that.
I think we could put in some specific language about TIF revenue bonds, maybe, under section 2.2.
So I'd entertain a motion to approve the agreement, subject to additional language changes to 2.2 regarding the funding source for the project.
And again, this funding source will allow us to use the TIF revenue bonds instead of using county general funds. That's what these TIFs were set up for, to be able to help pay for construction costs and design costs for this interchange. And there is development happening. There's a couple apartment complexes over by the Outlet Mall, and then again over by Africa Road, which will have TIF revenue coming in.
I hate to be in discussion without the motion being on the floor, but does that release the county then, so it must all be TIF?
I think if, right now, we're just talking about this $3 million. Eric, do you want to chime in?
Eric Hostetler again. As drafted, the agreement makes the additional contributions from the county or deposits from the county subject to appropriation. That is problematic language when we actually have a funding source that could actually be committed to the project, because subject to appropriation means the commissioners could ultimately just say, well, we're not gonna appropriate the money. And so I think it's better to have that additional funding source option in there. That should give the TID, in my opinion, a little more comfort that they're not gonna be stuck in the middle of design without the county making a deposit. So my proposal is that the commissioners would make, is it $75,000?
$750,000.
$750,000. That's a big difference.
Just a decimal point.
Make the initial $750,000 contribution now using general funds. The auditor can certify that those funds are currently available, and that we don't have the problem, as I see, with the auditor certifying based on a future appropriation. That's, Si's sitting right here, that's not something that they can really do. So just adding in that flexibility for additional funding sources so everybody's on the same page. Money that the county would be providing could be provided through some TIF revenue bond financing or through general fund.
So you'd be adding, in section 2.2, an item E, defining that.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't drafted it yet,
Mm-hmm.
but that's the idea, is that the chair would, if this board approves the resolution, as I understand it, the chair would have the ability to negotiate those additional provisions in 2.2, as well as, I think there were some references to Phase A carried over from the previous agreement, so those would be cleaned up as well.
All right.
So the chair, subject to the vote here, chair would bring it before this board again.
Well, that depends on how your resolution reads. If the board authorizes the chair to approve the agreement with those changes to add the TIF revenue bond financing language, you wouldn't need to take further action.
So it's an additional source.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, I'll make a motion that we approve this resolution subject to adding definitions in section 2.2 to permit the use of TIF revenue as an additional income source.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next is resolution 24-04.
So this resolution would actually authorize the chairman to enter into the agreement with MS Consultants for what we're calling modification number 1. The maximum amount of that modification would be an additional $3 million for a total of $6 million, and that would include the additional design of Phase B and C, plus some changes we are going to have to make or in the process of making for Phase A as a result of really some changes. And Joe, feel free to jump in here if I'm getting off the rails, but basically we've had some additional work involving changing making minor changes to the alignment as a result of the environmental reevaluation that ODOT is currently doing for the project. We had some additional geotechnical costs associated with the highway lighting, and what am I forgetting, Joe?
Mostly MOT.
Maintenance of traffic, thank you. So I know there was went through quite an exercise with ODOT district and central office staff to set up the maintenance of traffic for the freeway bridge that was in excess of what I think we originally had scoped the contract for. So again, the combination of the modification for that additional work plus the new Phase B and C would be a maximum of $6 million. But I would just add the intention behind this, and you'll see some highlighted blank lines. And the reason for that is we're still waiting to plug in those final numbers. It would, I'm sure, be Chairman Bosman's position that this agreement not be approved until after the project agreement you did in their last resolution is signed by the county commissioners, because that would be necessary to be able to certify the availability of the funds. So again, this is an effort just to try to save schedule, hopefully save a month. I know Joe and his team are ready to get to work on Phase B and C, and so I hate to lose a month in the process of waiting a month. So happy to answer any questions.
Would just add to Rob's last point, we've got several resolutions before you today that need modification and change, and it's not the way we'd like, excuse me, for these to happen, but this one in particular has some urgency to it. In the last month, there have been at least 3 calls that I've fielded from people that are asking questions about the project, asking questions about the schedule and about specific parcels of land. So the fact that, I think the fact that there's a date circled on the calendar for Phase A to go to construction next year is getting the attention of folks, and I think there's gonna be a lot of activity out there. So a month is a long time to wait to get this resolution approved, and I think if we can work on this, subject to the authorization not to exceed, with a not to exceed number, we'll be ahead and be thankful for the time we've saved in doing that. So, is there any other questions or discussion on this one?
Well, since it already states that it's subject to a financial obligation of no more than $6 million, this just needs to be a simple resolution. Excuse me.
I'd entertain a motion.
All right, I will move, we adopt resolution 2024-04.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And we have resolution 24-05. Rob?
So with the approval of the Beanalla Road agreement, we're requesting budget authority to make additional expenses of $75,000 in the capital fund, offset by, excuse me, not $75,000. I don't know that I printed out Exhibit A. It's no good. It's not there.
It's not there.
It's not in there?
Nope.
Well, that is a problem. What I can do, we can actually table this resolution until the next meeting. I want to make sure you have the budget in front of you.
All right.
So I'll move on to the explanation. I had originally intended to not have anything for the July meeting. However, it does appear that we will be able to get the Beanalla Road advertised and open bids before the next meeting. And so if you're available, we would be able to have a recommendation to award for that Beanalla contract at the next monthly meeting, and then we could do the budget resolution or budget amendment at that time in addition to the contract approval if at the pleasure of your board. Unfortunately, I know I won't be able to attend the July 10th meeting, but I will do my very best to have everything in order. Chris, as long as you're able to attend that,
July 10?
July 10th?
Yes.
So I guess it hasn't been moved, so we could simply,
Just, we will table that for lack of a motion.
yes.
Okay. So, Rob highlighted, we do have our next meeting planned for July 10th, and we will have, in addition to this 24-05 resolution, have some other items to discuss at that meeting, so. Anybody have a problem with that date?
I won't be here.
You will not?
I'll be here.
You'll be here, okay. Will one of you be here?
Yeah,
Okay, so we'll have a quorum and still be able to.
it's either here or a doctor's office, I'd rather be here.
We'd rather you be here too. Is there, item 10, is there any other business?
Mr. Chair, as I said probably a year ago, this TID was gonna get bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's obvious to me that this thing is getting to the point where we need some help in this group. And I would say, you know, we said earlier that, no, I don't need any help. You may need some help at some point. And I'd throw that out on the table, that this is, for Delaware County, we're bigger than this, and we just need to get on board.
Yeah,
So I don't like to sign stuff that I don't know anything about,
yeah,
and so far we haven't done that,
right.
but my comment.
It's a good thought. I'll see some of my colleagues in the county engineer circles in the next few months. And some of those that have pretty high functioning TIDs, I'll ask them about what kind of support and staffing they have assigned to that. And,
We have the budget to do it.
what's that?
I believe we have the budget to do it, so.
There are a couple of the larger TIDs actually have executive directors of the TID. It's a paid full-time staff person. So that's a big step from our volunteer staff with Rob and I, and mostly Rob, by the way. And I hope Rob doesn't take this conversation to indicate any lack of faith or appreciation for what he's doing, because it's he's a very adept juggler.
He's a very busy guy.
Yeah, and so we certainly appreciate that, but I appreciate your comment also, Tom. That there's a point where there may be a next step involved for us.
Thank you.
If I could, Mr. Chair, I certainly appreciate the comment, Tom, and I'm not a fan. I'm on several other boards, community authorities, and so forth, and I'm not a big fan of asking or being asked as a board member to approve incomplete resolutions. So I totally can relate to that position, and I don't like making the ask of your board to do that. I think the nature of what we just talked about today, these are relatively recent developments in terms of the projects, and obviously with the 7136 project are really schedule dependent. And so these particular resolutions today, I would probably in any other case simply just wait a month until they were fully ready to have the final text. In the case of the resolution today, I think it's prudent to go ahead and get these approved, which is the only reason I would ask you to do that today. But I certainly appreciate the sentiment and the desire, because we've got a lot of stuff going on at the county engineer's office, let alone the TID. But yeah, Mr. Bosman and I will have a discussion and see what we come up with.
Thank
The only other item I have under other business is I learned this week that let me back up, the OPWC funding program for local governments is coming up on its 30th year. Every 10 years, it's been on the ballot to authorize bonds from the state to fund local government projects. So we're not competing against the state or other federal applicants. It's just Ohio local governments, counties, cities, townships, and some sewer districts. And so we as a local government, speaking for all of those in the county, really rely on that funding. There's about, gosh, do you remember the number, Rob? Is it about $10 million, 10 to 12 million that comes to our district? We're in District 17 with Knox, Licking, Fairfield, Pickaway, and Morrow counties. And so we have a district integrating committee that meets. We make decisions about funding. We evaluate funding applications, all local, all by local entities, evaluating other local governments' applications. And the politics stays out of it. It's a great program. The money comes to local governments in a way that's not encumbered by a lot of regulation and prolonged project development. And it's just been one of the really great success stories in transportation and infrastructure funding in the state. So that comes up that expires in 2 years, and that'll be on the ballot. I just learned it'll be on the ballot in September and the fall of next year, November of 25. And so you'll hear more about that. But every chance that we get to talk to people that are influential, we need to thank our legislators for that. And so I'd ask you to be in a position of promoting that for our local government partners. So with that, any other business? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
And any objection? Hearing none, we will declare ourselves adjourned. Thank you. And we'll see you all in July, or some of you in July.